Hey there everyone, it's Dream, and this is my beginner's guide for Octopath Traveler Champions of the Continent, otherwise known as COTC. With the recent hype around Octopath Traveler 2, alongside COTC's own NieR Automata collab, there's been a huge wave of interest in this game, and so I'm here to help you along with that journey. In this guide, I'll be covering rerolls, what units to aim for, story progression and leveling up, what dailies you do, and of course, how to best spend your rubies as a new player. Each section will be timestamped and put into chapters, so feel free to skip around if you'd like. First things first, let's talk about how COTC is played. If you've played Octopath 2 or 1, you understand 75% of the battle system, but they added just a little bit of a twist to this one. Based on speed stats, your characters and the enemy will take turns hitting each other with pre-selected auto attacks, skills, or ultimates. There are no active use items in COTC. At the start of a turn, you'll pre-select all the actions that you will take for that turn, and at the top you can see the order that they will happen in. Like in the other two games in this series, you have not only an HP and a mana bar, but you also have a BP point bar. BP stands for boost points, which you will gain passively every single turn that you do not use them. And when you do use them, you can use them to affect your skills to hit more times, deal more damage, have buffs or heals last longer, and other things to that effect. On certain characters that already have their ultimate skills unlocked in EN, the use of this BP adds to a bar, which you can then use to use your ultimate ability once or twice depending on its level in each fight. Your enemies will also have little weakness boxes under them showing weapons or elements that you'll need to hit to deal bonus damage to lower their shield count. Once a shield count hits 0, that monster is put into a broken state, and this lets you deal extra damage while it loses its ability to use actions itself for this turn and the next. This means that you normally try to break at the start of a turn, so that way you're not only dealing 2 turns of bonus damage, but your enemy is also losing 2 turns of dealing damage to you. Also, in this game, instead of 4 characters, you have 8 characters in an active roster during a fight, put into 4 rows, and every single turn, you can pre-select 4 actions using 1 character from each row. Backline characters can still give passive buffs, and they will also regain HP or SP at the end of a turn. So team compositions in this game normally look like 1 or 2 healers, 2 or 3 buffers or utility units, and then 4 to 6 DPS units to fill the rest of the slots. So you want to build teams that hit enemy weaknesses, buff your hard hitters, debuff the enemy, and keep your team alive with heals. And that just about sums up how the battle system in this game works. Now, let's talk about rerolling. I know that rerolling is a part of mobile games that turns off quite a bit of people, but in a game like this, it's definitely worth doing at least the minimum amount of rerolling for a few starter units, as you'll be kicking yourself if you didn't do it later. If COTC is your first entry into a Bravely Default or Octopath style game, then by all means, you don't have to reroll, just play through, see if you like it. If you end up liking it, once you're like 5 or 6 hours in, then maybe that's when you go back, reroll, and you know that you're invested in getting a good account to play for the rest of the game. To put it in perspective, most casual players that I know of this game still at least have 150 hours in this game, and most hardcore players have around 700, 800. So it's definitely worth the investment of a few hours of rerolling if you're going to end up playing for that long anyway. So, how do you reroll in this game? It's simple. You boot it up, choose to play without signing in or making an account, play through the first 5 minutes of opening cutscene through the prologue until you unlock the guide function. This is COTC's gotcha banners. You use the starting gems or whatever current event pools you have available to you at the time, and if you don't get what you're looking for, you back out, return to the white title screen, you click on options, and then delete account and repeat the process until you get what you want. Once you have your desired account, instead of deleting your account, you go back to the title screen and you bind it to a Square Enix account or a social media account. That way you can log in from other devices, and then just in case something happens to that phone, tablet, or emulator, then you can re-log in without losing your progress. So now let's talk about what units you are looking for ideally in a reroll. At the start of an account, you are first given one of the 8 new COTC Pro tags. Of these 8, there are only really 3 that I would recommend you take through the prologue to even try for guides on the rerolls. These 3 units are Lynette, Viola, and Theo. Lynette is our current best in slot buffer in the game. She makes the cut in literally 90% of all current endgame fights, while enabling some of the best kill strats for the even harder content. The reason why Lynette is so crazy is because her kit has access to 3 different types of buffs that all stack with each other. She has passive buffs from her row swap passive, she has active buffs from her buff skills themselves, and then she now has access to special buffs with her new ultimate skill. To put that in perspective, in a lot of fights, there are units that you only bring because of their passive, or only bring because of their active skill, or even only bring because of their ultimate. So the fact that she makes a case for herself in all three of those categories makes her a mainstay of almost every comp in this game. The next unit is Viola. She's our current best in slot debuffer in the game. You'll find her paired alongside Lynette in most endgame fights. She offers a 20% physical attack and magic attack down debuff, along with a 25% physical defense and magical defense break skill. Due to the fact that she almost self-caps both of these debuffs by herself, she is a valid unit to bring to almost every single fight, outside of ones where you're bringing units for that specific fight that also happen to come with debuffs as part of their kits. But even then, she still makes a case for herself, being able to extend and fully cap out the buffs that other kits have. So even though she's no longer a must-have in every single current fight, she still makes the story bosses, early fights like BT NPCs, and half of the current endgame content still much more manageable. So for these reasons, she's my second recommendation as a starting unit, next to Lynette. And finally, we have our boy Teo. He isn't the best in slot in really anything anymore, but he's still a really solid regen healer and axe DPS. He appears in almost every single fight that has axe weaknesses, as a shield shaver, and as a co/main healer. Even though his value is much less to an endgame team than Lynette or Viola, just like Viola, he will make your story progression and your early hard fights much easier. That being said, I only recommend this as a starting character to casual free-to-play players who only plan on enjoying the story and don't really plan on super optimizing and grinding for endgame super boss fights like Arena. So, just to go over that one more time, if you're the kind of player who likes super bosses, pushing your account to be as strong as possible, regardless of free-to-play or being a spender, Lynette is 100% the character you're going to want to start with. If you're more casual and don't want to spend your first whole day of the game re-rolling accounts, you don't plan to invest much money in the game, and you're just kind of playing to play, then Viola or Theo are acceptable starting units to start you on that journey. While I'm making this video, we are currently in the middle of the NieR collab, and so if you're watching this while the NieR collab is still going on, it is probably the best time to start a new account than there has ever been. There's a free 10-pull banner that guarantees you 5-star 9S on it, along with an easy chance to get A2 or 2B, two of the current strongest units in the game. I would say that most people's current go-to reroll account during the NieR banner is starting with Lynette and grabbing an A2, a 2B, and then the guaranteed 9S out of that banner. So you have all three collab units, a Lynette. You're basically good to go for the rest of the game. However, it is definitely good enough to have Lynette, A2, and 9S. That is more than enough to start with, and it'll get you going super good on your journey. However, I'm going to talk about some other general pull units that you can get off of the NieR collab banner by missing the collab units, or if you're watching this video after the NieR collab has ended and you only have regular banners to pull on. Back when I made my account, my goal for rerolling was getting a Viola, a Lynette, and a Theo. If I could get at least two of those three and an extra 5-star, I was good to go. But if I got all three, that was the money. And so my advice hasn't really changed much since then. Your goal should be some flavor of Lynette, Viola, strong nuker, and a healer. If you're the kind of person that spends money on gacha games, even if it's not a lot, if you're a dolphin, you spend here and there when you want to, then getting a healer in your opening rolls is much less important because there are lots of 4-star healers that'll get you through the game, and eventually you'll pick up one of the mini healers in the game through spending your money. If you're more of a free-to-play kind of gacha player, then I would say my advice, if you're trying to be hardcore, is to get a Lynette, a good healer, and a solid nuker. So now let's talk about those categories and what units you're kind of looking for to fill those slots. In terms of a healing unit, you are looking for Ophelia or Alphen, the two healers from Octopath 1. Either one can be the perfect co-healer or main healer in any comp that you take them to. And of course, shout out to my boy Theo, who is still good, but these two characters really overshadow him in most fights nowadays. Next, let's talk about magic nukers. So most magic users are kind of in one niche. There is a character that is basically the best at fire right now. There's a character that is the best at ice, the best at lightning, the best at light, the best at wind. However, there are two characters that offer multi-element spreads, those being Cyrus, who covers fire, ice, and lightning, and then Odette, who covers both light and wind. Either one of these characters would be an amazing magic nuker to add to your roster. Cyrus is a part of the general pool, and Odette is only available if you're pulling on a Sacred Blaze banner, which are banners that only come around every now and again. However, they're extra special banners because all of the units that aren't 5 stars are all full guaranteed 4 stars, meaning that you can fill out your roster build up your 3.5s to 4s at the same time as you're hunting. Next, let's talk about physical nukers that would be a great addition to your roster. In terms of sword characters, the two that make the cut in most fights currently are Fior and Ulbrich, with Lars going to be added to the general spook pool within the next month or two. So if you're watching this video in the future, definitely Lars is added to that list. In terms of spear or merchant class characters, Wudai is really the only one that I would really consider a spear DPS character, while the rest of them are really used for more of their utility or shield shave ability. She, like Lars, is not on the general pool yet, but she will be added in the next month or two. But in terms of other merchants, not for their DPS, we have Gilderoy and Tressa. These are two characters that a lot of people use as tanks for some of the harder fights like level 100 NPCs or some of the arena champions. While they don't hit as hard, they are great utility units to have at the start of the game for the story bosses and at the end of the game for some of the harder boss fights. Next up, we have Dagger or Thief classes, and of the top 3 Thieves right now in terms of DPS nuking power, A2, Therian, and Adele take those spots, 2 of those characters being collab-only units, so realistically, Therian is going to be your reroll go-to if you're not watching this video during the NieR collab. In terms of axe attackers, we look back at the NieR collab with A2 and 2B once again. However, noticeable shout out for Theo and for Alphen for having good shaving abilities, along with having decent nukes on their axe attacks. And then for our hunters, our 2 main nukers are of course Zonta and Kurz. Zonta being the number 1 for both shield shave and the number 1 for nuking. However, honorable shout out to Scarecrow and Honnet, who have AoE shield shave abilities that have gotten me through a lot of the fights in this game too. Currently in the English version of CotC, we don't currently use Staff, Tome, or Fan really as physical attackers, so I'm not really going to list anything here, but I'll use this section as an honorable shout out for Primrose, who is your enabler for being able to complete most endgame level 100 NPCs that are weak to either Fan or Dark. So now hopefully with the knowledge of what the best characters are in kind of each niche in the game right now, you can make an informed decision on where you want to stop with your rerolls. You can go for, like I said, collab units with Lynette. You can go for Lynette with a healer and one of the nukers I talked about, with suggestions for that kind of route being things like a Lynette Cyrus Ophelia or a Lynette Therian Alphen. All those kind of comps work together well, and they'll get you going through the game. So again, it's not something that you have to like super try hard for. I feel like getting 3 really good things is like the best you're going to do realistically. You may even get like an extra like kind of side unit along with that. But if you're someone that doesn't like to spend tons of time re-rolling, then basically get 2 out of the 3 of like something you want and you're good to go. Okay, so your account's re-rolled. It's time to start playing the actual game. The way you progress in CotC is actually very simple. You have a bunch of main quests that are denoted in your quest button and on the minimap when you have them prioritized, and you go through each of them in chapters. Each thread of stories has 4 chapters, a prologue, a chapter 1, a chapter 2, and a chapter 3. After completing all 3 influence branch paths of a story, there will usually be an epilogue, and then they will combine into one story for a few chapters. This will be your first Master of All. After you beat the continuation and the epilogue of Master of All, you will then get 3 influence chapters again called the Bestower arcs. You'll have Bestower of Fame, Bestower of Wealth, Bestower of Power, just like you had the regular ones at the beginning. Those will then again combine into the Bestower of All and go through a storyline like that, which is currently where JP is in the game. In the beginning, you'll have very limited access to towns, maps, and different bosses. However, these will naturally spread and gain over your time going through the story, because the stories are what unlocks those roadblocks to take you to other towns, gain more routes, see higher level monsters, and get higher level drops. So whatever path you start in, you basically want to farm some of the enemies there, get some of their drops, take it back to the town blacksmith, and make some of your first armors and weapons just to get them in gear. And then you basically bum rush the story. It'll take you through some fights. It'll take you through areas where you'll have forced encounters, and you'll see a bunch of bigger enemies around the map called elites. Every single day, around the 3 main towns that you can start at, there will be a Kate elite mob that you can kill every single day for bonus EXP. You can also, in certain regions, watch 3 ads a day to get a guaranteed extra Kate battle. These 3 Kate battles I recommend doing every single day at the start of your journey, as they are going to be your main power level for each of your teams. In this game, it's not really recommended to grind regular enemy kills for EXP, It's more recommended to run around just looking for random Kate encounter battles if you're looking purely for EXP. However, those Kates have a chance to flee, so that process can get a little frustrating. I definitely recommend just taking it slow at the start, doing your ad Kates every single day, doing your 3 elite spawn Kates every single day, and then progressing in the story as far as you can. Once you make it to the Master of All, that's where shit starts getting real and you start unlocking a lot of your dailies, things like hunts and things like the Nameless Village. You will slowly gain access to these things and they will be side quests inside of your quest journal, so they're not things that you can just miss. Don't worry, you'll get them progressively as you go through the story further and further. You'll unlock more dailies in the Nameless Town, and eventually you'll unlock a second tier and a third tier of hunts. Hunts are a daily activity that eventually you can just use an auto ticket to clear with no repercussions that give you your limit break stones. So let's say you pull a 5-star A2. Her max level was 80, but through getting the stones that you get from hunts, you can level her up all the way up to level 100 for free, slowly getting her max level up through those stones daily. During Master of All is when I guess most of you will probably hit your first wall in terms of the boss just kicking your ass and you can't proceed. This is the point in which you start doing your daily EXP farm and going around to the highest level area that you currently have unlocked. It's usually the town where the quest that you are in is happening. And you farm the items from the mobs around that area to get every single one of your characters in the highest weapon and the highest armor that they can possibly be in. To beat the final boss of Master of All, you're probably going to need your characters to be around level 60 and to all be sitting in that level 59 gear that you can farm in that area. Once you get into the bestower arcs after that, that's when you start getting into the newer towns and the newer gear in which you can make different tiers of weapons. These are made through the daily farming of elite mobs in the region, along with farming the basic materials from the mobs around those towns. Once you get to this point in the game, you only really grind if you get walled. Let's say that you have a comp that's really strong against a certain boss, kill it and move on straight to the next chapter. Don't farm, it's perfectly fine. Once you get walled by a boss in the bestower chapters, that's when you stop, grind, get weapons for your teams, get some more levels, get armor on all your characters. That's when you go back and you farm. You never want to make a weapon 4 of an old patch, so weapon 3s are more than enough if you even have to go that far to beat the content. I'll put a little card notification in the top of the video right now if you want to see how weapon sets are farmed for the current set that we have right now. Also, I have a few power leveling tricks. I have a video on how to level up using the Memoir farm once you have the refight for the Master of Fame unlocked. I don't know exactly when you get this, since we got this later on after most of the player base had already beaten Master of All, but I assume it's either right after you beat Master of Fame or partially into Master of All. I'll put a card up at the top of the video linking to how you do that strat right now. Aside from that, you can also try to hard boost one of your top DPS characters immediately to level 71 instead of equally all leveling them up to 60. This is because once you have a character that's level 71 or higher, you've unlocked and capped out the best rates you're going to get for your ad watching Kates every single day. This means that you have a higher chance to get koi chubby Kates and a way higher chance to get regular chubby Kates. You can also, if you do not like the Kate that you've got during your ad roll for the day, you can just close your game during the fight, rewatch the ad, and it will not count towards that fight until you complete it. So you can basically guarantee yourself getting the highest tier Kate that you can get every single day if you're willing to sit there and watch ads over and over again. Now let's talk about dailies. As I talked about in the last section, as you go throughout the game, you will slowly unlock more parts of the Nameless Town, and you will slowly unlock more hunts. These are your 2 daily things you do. Nameless Town dailies will account for almost all of the regular feat dailies you have to complete for your 5 daily gems, along with doing your hunts either by autocomplete or by manual, and then killing just like 2 or 3 extra groups of mobs, and that'll finish you off for the whole day. I personally can complete my dailies in under 5 minutes every single day, and then I can go about it and play whenever I want. There are extra things if you want to do dailies, like killing the BT NPCs each once per day, so you can start gathering your historical fragments and BT weapons for later on in the game when you need them. However, you don't really have to do this, and you can just farm them in giant bursts whenever you want. And then lastly, to wrap up this beginner guide, what is the best way to use your rubies as a new player? There's basically 2 schools of thought in the community on this. The first is that you basically just do the value step, the 100 or the 150 gem step of every single banner, and you just gleefully accept whatever the game is willing to hand you, whether it's the banner unit, whether it's a general pull unit, whatever. You're basically just seeking pure value. You're trying to play the odds. You're trying to get as much bang for each ruby as possible. Long term, this strat only works if you're a spender. If you're going to use every single week 100 or 200 gems to do a step 1 of 1 or 2 banners, then eventually you're not going to have enough to full pity a unit that you really want eventually. However, if you're a spender, you can supplement that missing ruby count that you're getting on value steps by just pulling out your wallet and guaranteeing yourself the unit with more pools. As a moderate spender in this game personally, this is what I do. I use my free gems to get value steps and value step-ups whenever they come out, and then I use my paid gems to go hard on units that I know that I want. Stuff like collab units. I whaled out a little bit for Lars, I whaled out a little bit for Alphen. You can see videos like that on my YouTube. Those are basically the characters that I know that I want, and so I'm willing to put in the $100 if I need to get them, and I'm willing to put in like the few $100s if I'm trying to perfect them all the way. However, the second school of thought is much more free-to-play friendly or super low spender friendly, also just invariance in general friendly. And this school of thought believes that you should only put gems into a banner if you're going to do one of two things. Either hit the step 5 that guarantees you a 5-star unit, or go all the way to pity. The former being a much more realistic way to play this game, in my opinion at least, because then at least you can go to a step 5 every month or so based off of your free gems, and you can basically skip doing that for a month so that you can save up a pity on a character. This helps even out your variance a lot because you're guaranteeing a 5-star every 50 steps, and then odds-wise, you should be getting an extra 2 4.5 or 5 stars along the way every single time. This is personally the philosophy that I recommend to people joining this game. This game frequently does banners where you can kind of like make up old units. So eventually we're going to get a OG Octopath banner where we get like all 4 of the boys on one side, all 4 of the girls on the other side. Right now we have a dancer and a thief banner. So those are really good value banners to go to step 5, get the guaranteed dancer or thief unit that you're trying to hit, and then basically just fill out your roster through these like cheap full step ups that have guaranteed characters. That being said, a lot of the newer units that are going to be upcoming in the next few months are really, really strong. So you don't even always even have to look back. A lot of the stuff is in the general banner. You can pull on just the new stuff that comes out and spook the old stuff and get going through that. It's whatever you feel most comfortable doing. Again, if you're free to play, you have to be a little bit more conservative with it, but just going for step 5s on like a dancer banner if you have no 5-star dancers is always going to be a good thing, right? But, just always make sure you're saving enough that you can guarantee yourself some crazy shit or a character that you really, really like when they come out. Also, honorable shout out for all my homies that saved up 7 to 10k gems for the NieR collab all of these months, and they just let it rip on the waifus. God bless your souls. Even if you died in the trenches, I respect you. And that pretty much covers 99% of the questions that new players have been asking around the Discord or in the comment section lately. So if you want to join a Discord community full of endgame players, I will have that linked in the description and in the pinned comment. It's not my Discord, but it's full of active players of this game that are willing to help you. It's full of information, character indexes, mob indexes, drop indexes, anything you could possibly want to know about the game is down in that Discord. So definitely go join if that's your kind of thing. If you have any more questions or anything I didn't cover in this, please feel free to comment down below. I will reply to them as best as I can. If you liked this and you want more future content, please subscribe to the channel. And of course, go through my backlog. There's tons of different stuff in there to help you out and check out as you go through your journey in Octopath COTC. All right, appreciate it. Stay safe. Much love. Booyah.